Hey Linda, just wanted to check and be sure everybody can hear me okay.
All right, so it's time to get started, and it's my pleasure to introduce Lakshmi Putnam, and she was a LEAP GA, as well as a master's student on campus. And starting next week, we'll hear from guest speakers who are specializing in a particular area of science or technology. But I thought it'd be interesting to lead off with someone who has a more broader portfolio. So she's prepared a number of slides, and I've also linked these from the Moodle site. So I'll just turn it over to her. Yes, we've already learned. She's already taught us something even before she makes her presentation. So I'll turn it over.
All right, great. Thanks, Linda. I've been looking forward to this. It's been kind of crazy at my office, honestly. We have been renovating our offices, so it's a nice break to be able to sit and just talk about my job and not have to worry about where all my furniture is. All right, can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, getting some chat marks. All right, great. Okay, so I've got quite a few things to get through today, so hopefully I can get through it in the hour. Hi, you guys already know me. I'm Lakshmi Putnam. I am a research and instruction librarian at Towson University. My library is called Albert S. Cook. It's in Baltimore, Maryland. I graduated from GSLIS May 2010, and I started this job January 2011. So I've currently just been at this job a little bit over a year. It's been a busy year, and I've enjoyed it a lot. And hopefully, we just got done doing our annual reviews, so I tried to make this a little less boring than my annual review, so we'll see. You guys can tell me at the end. All right. Okay, so just a little bit of history about how I got to where I am right now. I got a bachelor's degree in environmental biology from the University of Colorado Boulder. Before and then I took like a year off, and then I went and got my master's at GSLIS. And just a couple things I wanted to point out as like part of my time when I was getting my master's degree, things that I think really helped me with my current position now and just being in librarianship in general. My first year at GSLIS, I was lucky enough to get a Spectrum scholarship. For those of you who aren't aware, Spectrum is a diversity scholarship available through ALA, and it's a great program. If you guys know anybody who's coming in, because typically after your first year, I think it's like limited on credits. So, but here's the link to the site. But it's a great program, so if you guys do know sort of any incoming students and who might be interested and applicable to this scholarship, I do highly recommend it. It sent me to one of the conferences for a leadership symposium, and it was a great cohort of people to really get to know. I really enjoyed this scholarship. And of course, they give you money, which is always a great thing too. The other scholarship I got my second year was the ARL initiative to recruit a diverse workforce. And actually, they did just put this out. And this is technically a 2-year program, but I only did it my second year, so I only got half the money for it. Let's see if it works. I guess that one doesn't want to go through. Oh, there. It just took a little while. And this one is, I would say, was my favorite cohort that I got to know. They had a great leadership symposium too, similar to Spectrum. It was a great networking group, so a great group of people just really support you through anything, whether or not you're interested in being in a research library or not. It was really a great program. I highly recommend it if you guys are thinking about or need to find any sort of additional scholarships, I do highly recommend ARL. They do have a couple other, like the Career Enhancement Program does like a summer internship that's pretty valuable. I've heard a lot of people say really good things about that, so I highly recommend checking that out. So those both really gave me a lot of great sort of leadership and networking opportunities. The other thing I think that was really invaluable, as Linda did mention, was that I had an assistantship with ITD. And being a graduate student at the school and helping with all the technology and helping run the classes, it really gave me an opportunity to sort of get my hands dirty, I guess, playing with new technology and getting to really get that experience that made me feel confident using any technology, whether or not it was this LEAP program or just getting to know another program and using it in the classroom or teaching somebody else about it. So getting as much technical experience in there as possible is always a good thing. I'm not by any means a computer expert, but it always helps to know a little bit. A couple other things I did while I was at GSLIS that I thought was really useful was I had a practicum at the Natural History Survey out there over the summer, and that sort of gave me a little bit of science experience. My whole time I was there, I knew I wanted to be a science librarian, so I was trying to get as much science librarian experience as possible. So I did a practicum, which was for credit, and I also did an alternative spring break at Shedd Aquarium up in Chicago. That was really great. I really loved that. Not only because I got to get into the aquarium really early and see all the animals before anybody else, but also because it just gives you, that little bit of experience that can help you in an interview when you're talking about anything. I also had a lot of really great career advisors through the Spectrum Scholarship and through the ARL Scholarship. I had a lot of peer advisors, but also you guys there have a really good little group of people. Meg Edwards and Roy Brooks are really good people there helping you guys figure stuff out, get practicums in place, get alternative spring break opportunities, review your resume, go over your cover letters and stuff like that. So they were really great, and they helped me out a lot to get my current position. The other point I have on here is focus flexibility. So like I said, I've kind of been saying getting that experience in there was invaluable and trying to get in as much experience as possible, but I do think there needs to be a little bit of focus in there of, I knew I wanted to be doing science librarian things, so I tried to orient my classes and my projects towards science librarianship, but I was also flexible when it came to where was I going to go work. I luckily didn't have to stay in a location, so I could move wherever I wanted, so I kind of had that kind of open flexibility, but also the flexibility in just sort of considering, what I'm learning here, how is it applicable elsewhere, and how can I show people that. And then I think a large part of my current job was also luck. I applied at the right time, and the people that I work with are great. I really connected with them on the interview, and I just got really lucky. So, all right. Okay, so briefly before I get started, I kind of wanted to ask you guys, how did you get to this class, I guess? Are you guys interested in being science librarians? What's your interest in science librarianship? Do you guys have backgrounds? You guys can type them in. Do they have mic privileges? Or if you can talk. I don't know if you guys have privileges or not. Okay. Give you guys a little bit of time to type it all in. But I just kind of want to get a sense of what you guys want to hear from me. No background in science, yeah. Yes, just sort of taking the class to get a sort of a general feel for science. Cool. Cole, are you in the bioinformatics program? Yeah. Okay, so a lot of no background in science. I just get that a lot from people. They said, you know, because you have that background in science, it's going to help you get a job so much. But I do have to say that I think a lot of this, I apply some of my background knowledge, but I think a lot of it really does come from your enthusiasm about the topic, you know. So I'm going to talk later about this geology project. I don't know anything about geology, right? I am very much more of an animal behavior, environmental science person, but I just did a whole display on geology. So, you know, sort of just being enthusiastic and willing to learn, I think, is a large part of it. Yeah, great. All right, guys. So throughout this whole thing, if you guys have questions, feel free to put them in chat. Raise your hands if you want to talk on the mic. And if I don't get to anything while I'm discussing, then towards the end, hopefully we'll have some time to let you guys talk some more with me. All right. Great. Thanks for sharing, guys. Okay, so just a little bit about my university. Nobody's heard of it. It's not Towson, it's not Towson, it's Towson University out here in Baltimore, Maryland. I have not watched The Wire. Oh yay, from Maryland, good. Most people outside of Maryland. Sometimes I think people in Maryland and they haven't heard of it, which always surprises me since it's, as I have listed here, the second or third largest public university in Maryland. That is depending on whether College Park is the biggest one, of course, but they also have an online program, so that would technically, their online program is like a separate thing, and that would technically be the second biggest, but I say College Park is College Park, and we're the second largest. It's a tiger, and it is public, yeah. We're Towson Tigers. So roughly 20,000 students, about 15,000 undergrad, 3,000 grad, give or take. We're growing a little bit. We've kind of leveled out. We grew a lot in the last 10 years. But originally Towson University was a teacher's college within the city of Baltimore. And it was a free teacher's college. It was a college that students could come to for free and get their teaching certificate at. It is still considered a very good deal coming here. It is fairly cheap compared to most of the other places I've been. Here's my website for the school. So in case you guys want to explore it on your own, it's a really great university. Smoke-free. I was interested to find that when I got here, they had just implemented that we were a smoke-free campus. I thought that was pretty interesting. So there's a lot of little quirks about it. And because it's a teacher's college, I would say it's definitely not a research school. So the faculty aren't focused on research. They are doing, a lot of them are doing research, but a lot of it is more about the students and teaching the students and making great teachers. We are the largest producers of teachers in Maryland. So I think that goes along with how accepting the whole faculty as a whole are with the library, because they are so oriented towards teaching. Okay, here's a picture of my library, Albert S. Cook Library. Got 5 levels in there. It's a pretty old building. The building we're currently in was built in 1960. It recently merged with the Baltimore Hebrew Institute, so we have their collection housed in our library, which is kind of neat, and we have a lot of really cool stuff in our special collections that are sort of library books and stuff. So it's a nice mix of sort of academic and that sort of special collection that we have through the Baltimore Hebrew Institute. We're the largest building on campus that has computers, open computers for everyone. Most of our collection is electronic. We have a ton of ebooks, of course. We have a ton of articles. Not nearly as many as Illinois, of course. I kind of went through withdrawal when I first got out here because we don't have a lot of stuff. we have Web of Science. We don't have Scopus. We don't have Access Science as another science database that I miss from being at Illinois. Really, I would like to say that I think our collection is more focused on being current. So we're not trying to like keep everything, and trying to stay current with whatever the faculty are trying to use with their students, whatever they're trying to research right now. Because we are connected to the USMAI system, which is the University Systems of Maryland something. In any case, a whole bunch of universities in Maryland that we're all connected to, and I would say the largest one of those being College Park. We depend on them very much for interlibrary loan items, and the nice thing about being in consortium with them is they sort of give us more pull when it comes to negotiating prices on databases and on a lot of the access that we do get. Like right now we're talking about getting a discovery tool, and all of us sort of have to decide together, which has its pros and cons. We have to all decide together, so it takes a really long time for everybody to sort of come to some sort of conclusion. But because we're all standing together, we get that much more power in telling them what we want. So it's a pretty great library. I do enjoy working with the collection and all the people inside of it. We've got roughly about I want to say 15 research and instruction librarians in my department. There's a nice circulation department, technical services. Also, technical services for the entire campus is actually housed in the library, so that's really nice. We have all the tech people right there in the library, so if anything does go wrong, we can usually get it fixed right away. Okay, so just briefly what I do now, these are 4 areas that I'm going to sort of get more in depth with. I am currently liaison to the biology department, molecular biology, chemistry, forensic chemistry, and environmental science. So a lot of those life sciences. We do also have a nursing program, and that goes to another librarian, and a health sciences program, occupational therapy, health sciences program, and that goes to another librarian. So I've got about 2 other librarians that I work with the sciences, but I get a lot of the primary life sciences. I want to say I teach roughly 20 library instruction sessions a semester. This is probably going to get bigger, especially considering that most of the librarians that I'm working with in research and instruction are teaching, I want to say, 30 or 40 sessions a semester. No, they aren't full semester courses, so these are just integrated library sessions. So like I'm going in and teaching either a one-shot, or I typically try to convince the faculty that a one-shot isn't a good idea and that I should be integrated into like 2 or 3. So I usually do at least 2 sessions with the students. And then depending, like last semester I had another class that integrated 3. 3 to 4 is really the best to integrate with the classes and sort of help them through a whole bunch of assignments and stuff like that. So it really does vary depending on the class and the professor. And then these vary in length too, but most of the time it's like either one 50-minute session, or I have a longer class that's like 1 hour and 15. And I'll either go to their class or they'll come to me, because we have instruction classes in our library that we can reserve and let them come in and use. They're like computer labs for them to use. The other things I'm going to get into, I'm going to talk about, they're like individual sessions. So like just this past week I had 4 sessions. 2 of them were 1 hour and 15, and 2 of them were 50 minutes. But they were each different classes that I went to. So it's a lot to juggle, but a lot of fun, because there's a lot of different topics we get into. So I'm going to get into the instruction sessions in a bit, and then I'm going to talk about sort of what I'm doing, presenting and writing within library academia as part of my position. Also a little bit about the reference work that I do at the actual reference desk, and individual consultations that I do. And then another big part of what I do is committee work, of course, which has been fun. Okay, so just a little bit more about my liaison work. Well, with collection development, I don't really pick out the journals so much. There's sort of a set journal subscriptions at the moment, and they fluctuate depending on whether or not a department decides that they want to get more journal subscriptions to a specific thing, but we do have a certain book budget that we each have to spend. And the nice thing is that there are library liaisons within each department that we work with who are also supposed to focus on picking out which books they want to buy. So I work with them to help them sort of decide and pick, and also send them reminders to tell them they need to remember to spend their money. And we also sort of try to make sure that each department knows what's available to them, so they're not just using like one database, that they know that when we have access to different databases that they're there. And of course, if any major changes do happen, like currently we are discussing dropping Web of Science to subscribe to Scopus because we don't have big enough budget to pay for both of them. So discussing with the department, sort of reassuring them or answering any of the questions that they have about it's a really tough choice. You know, what's the difference? That's really what they want to know. A lot of them want to know, well, am I still going to be able to find this? And for the most part, yes, you are. Still going to be able to get access to your journals. They're just going to be in a different database. This Web of Science Scopus thing has been interesting just because I was always a big Web of Science person, but I do have to say that Elsevier has made large strides in making Scopus more comprehensive and a really strong tool for analyzing like journals. So, you know, lots of times that's what professors want to be able to go in and see how many times have I been cited and what's like the strength of my, you know, my article in this specific journal and stuff like that. So it's been kind of interesting, and you know, going in and reading the various materials and trying to figure out, because of course when you invite the vendor in and tell them, okay, well tell us about this, they know how to sell their product. So trying to get a critical thought process through and sort of figuring it all out. It's been interesting. So far, I feel like chemistry's on our side with us switching to Scopus, but the physics people don't want us to switch to what's off of Web of Science. So, you know, just trying to discuss it with everybody and trying to make sure there's not too many unhappy people. Another big part of my liaison work is meeting with the faculty, and I think a large part of this, like when I first got here, was like, I was like, okay, well I need to email everybody, I know that, but what else am I going to do to meet the faculty and sort of give them a face, right? Because I want them to know me, I want them to feel comfortable contacting me about anything library related, information related, whatever it is. So a lot of this is going to orientations, whether it's a new faculty orientation or it's a student orientation for something, and just putting yourself out there and introducing yourself to everybody. Going to campus events. We have a lot of on-campus like multicultural conferences, environmental conferences that are just like conferences that we hold for our faculty, and it sort of gives the faculty a chance to sort of do some sort of continuing education and stuff, and it's a really great chance for me to go in there and make sure that I meet more people and shake more hands, and just be involved with campus in general. I think this is a large part of sort of becoming an embedded librarian, just making sure that, you know, I'm not just staying in the library, that I'm going out there and becoming essentially a part of their department, and that they feel comfortable coming and talking to me about anything. I'm also, when I go out and meet with the faculty, a lot of the times I am marketing library instruction sessions. As I said, trying to convince them that one-shots aren't a great idea. We can do them, but one-shots basically just accomplish showing the students the library website and letting them know how to find stuff. It doesn't really integrate any sort of information literacy, which is what we are striving to do. You know, so more than just this is how you get into this database and find an article about cancer. We want them to recognize this is how you get into multiple places to evaluate multiple articles and then decide that these 5 articles are the best articles for their information need, right? So just making it a little bit more expansive. So marketing the instruction sessions is, you know, emailing them, reminding them, creating a flyer, mailing it to them. But I also think it's the instruction sessions that I do have, making sure that they're good, and then, you know, that does wonders, because then they go back and say, you know, you have to put one of these instruction sessions in your class. None of my students plagiarized this semester because I had a library instruction session, right? So just making sure that they really know that we can provide some valuable insight for their students. We also do a lot of like faculty workshops. So we have a first-year instruction librarian who's done a really great job with creating workshops for the faculty to come to. We just implemented this new freshman seminar that all incoming freshmen are required to take. However, as with anything that is implemented campus-wide, a lot of the faculty have been sort of floundering because they haven't been given a lot of direction in what they're supposed to be doing for the class. They've been told that, you know, these are the things, you know, the students aren't going to be taking a test. It's a seminar class. They are going to be, you know, gaining these skills, you know, and becoming more information literate, basically, is what the seminar is sort of setting as the goal. But then there hasn't been a lot to tell the faculty, well, this is how you maybe want to try to do it, you know, sort of examples. And we've planned a lot of workshops to help the faculty sort of form ideas about how to teach freshmen and what it means to teach freshmen the basics, right? Because they don't come in knowing how to research anything. Also, liaison work. I help faculty with their research. This example that I have listed here. I had a faculty ask me that they were looking for biology reviews on cell membrane biology within the last 6 years. It's like a really quick and dirty sort of question, and I was like, okay, cell membrane biology, that's a very broad topic. I can find a whole bunch of reviews on that, and they just went out and made him a list, which is what this is. This is a RefWorks list I have listed here. Here it is. So I use RefWorks a lot when I'm compiling stuff for students or faculty. Not only is it easier for me to put a whole bunch of citations together, it also sort of sometimes gives them a hint, hey, maybe this is a tool that I want to be using. Some of them already know how to use RefWorks, but lots of times I'll see professors, they'll see this and they'll be like, oh, how did you do that? So this is a great tool for me to be able to put a whole bunch of articles together and sort of point them in the right direction. Okay. I think another big part of our liaison work that I do with my department is this roving reference program that we just implemented this last, I would say we organized this over the summer and then implemented it in the fall. So we branded it, essentially. We called it Research Relief. There are signs all over campus about this, flyers. It's up on a lot of the TV monitors that are all over campus. And basically this is a whole bunch of us liaisons go out to various locations on campus. I go to the Science Building, Smith. One of the first year librarian, she goes out to like sort of a dorm area. There's a couple liberal arts librarians that go out to the liberal arts building. Music librarian goes out to the theater building. So we're going out to the various locations where the students are going for their classes and then trying to make ourselves available that way. Some of the librarians have been doing this for a while already. We just sort of branded it as the same unified thing, so hopefully making it a little bit more recognizable across campus. The program that I'm working with within Smith with Research Relief is this Talents and Opportunities in STEM. So it's a little scholarship / cohort that works with a whole bunch of students that are in STEM majors, and sort of gives me a chance to work with like a smaller group within Smith and give them a chance to get to know me a little bit better. If you guys don't know what STEM is, it's science, technology, engineering, math. At least I think it is. I hope it is. So yeah, it's been not super successful, but I think we're still working on making sure that the students know that we're out there, and also making ourselves more visible, because it's very easy to go and just sit down somewhere behind a sign, you know, but to go out into their space and sort of introduce yourself and make sure that they know you're there and that you are approachable is like is a completely different thing. So maybe we'll get t-shirts or something, who knows. Get a little jingle. Okay, so to get into a little bit to my library instruction, which I feel like is at least a third of what I do. So most of the instruction goes on the first two months of every semester. So right now, this month and March are my two busiest months, because our semester doesn't start until like the last week of January, the first week of February, because they have this like weird mini semester, so they have all of January off, most of them. And then of course, fall semester I'm busy. September and October are my two busiest months, because that's typically, you know, you're introducing the students to everything, you're introducing them to their topics, they're figuring out their research, and then they're going to want to get it all done hopefully before their big research project is due by the end of the semester. So you want to make sure they know how to do the research for their big research project before that. The library instruction, as I was sort of getting into earlier, it's more than just going in and showing them, you know, how to find something for their specific class, how to go and find that book, and go and use that call number to go and find that book. You know, that's part of it, but I think a bigger, larger part of it is integrating like information literacy into the classroom and sort of making sure that you're producing students that are capable of being informed consumers, right? And a large part of this is those ACRL standards. I don't know if you guys are familiar with those yet. But if you ever have the time, I highly recommend just going and reading through them. They're interesting just to sort of consider and think about. And I think in any position in an academic library, they're going to want to know that you at least have some sort of familiarity with the ACRL standards. I have on here this this picture of Perry's model. Does anybody know who William Perry is? Couple yeses and a couple no's. So William Perry's this guy who came up with these sort of like intellectual stages. Yeah, he's big in instruction. He came up with these intellectual stages that when I first learned about them, I was like, this makes so much sense. This is genius. And he like came up with them in like the 70s or something. But there's been a lot of sort of, you know, adjustment and sort of thought on and stuff built upon. No, I mean, like, I didn't hear about this until I got to my job, and I thought I would. You mean this sounds like something I should have heard in, you know, in my undergrad. But I'm going to show you guys this. These are slides that a coworker. She actually works at University of Baltimore here. She did this sort of session with us, talking to us about Perry's stages of intellectual and moral development, and how it's sort of applicable to information literacy instructors. I highly recommend you guys check it out. It's really interesting to sort of consider the intellectual stages and how they are applicable in what you're designing. So it's just talking about how when you're talking to freshmen, you know, they see things as very black and white. You know, they just want to know what the right answer is so they can give it back to you and get an A on the test, you know. So how do you work with students that you know maybe are like on that level of like yes, no, and how do you not only how do you work with those students, but how do you help develop their intellectual stage into the next stage? You know, how do you get them to be sort of critical thinkers, as I was saying before, sort of able to evaluate information, look at it, and form their own opinions, right? So I have the stages are up here on this little notepad here: dualism, multiplicity, contextual relativism, and commitment. So just sort of growing through those stages and sort of helping them see, right? And I think this is important because, like, lots of times I'm always constantly amazed sometimes when I'm talking to faculty or I'm talking to other people, and they can get so frustrated, and it's easy to get frustrated because you are at this level already where you understand and you know why this is important, right? But you're working with some students and they just don't care, or you feel like they just don't care, you know. But when you try to put it, when you put it in this context of like, well, where are they, and how can I work with them to help them develop to this point where they actually care, I think makes the lesson a lot more enjoyable for you and for the students, because you're reaching out to them on their level and helping them grow. So you're considering like this kind of stuff when you're writing an instruction session, right? Like, it's not something I'm constantly thinking about, but sort of keeping it in mind when you're developing a lesson, and you know, considering if I'm working with the freshmen or if I'm working with the graduate students, right? So when I'm working with as I mentioned before, and I'm working with the freshmen, we have this thing called a TSEM, Towson Seminar, right? This required class that they're supposed to take. And frequently when I'm working with these classes, freshman classes, it is just an introduction to the basics. I'm teaching them how to evaluate information. So just the basics of like, okay, well, when you guys go and search on Google, because that's what everybody does, right? Maybe consider that what you're looking at should be sort of taken with a grain of salt, right? So this thing that I have up here is crap, you know, sort of analyzing things for crap, right? Currency, reliability, authority, accuracy, purpose, sort of making them sort of think, you know, okay, well, you know, who wrote this and why? You know, and is this information any good? Basics, again, how to use the catalog. I'm always amazed too when students come up, they don't know how to find something. Yeah, I like that. I just started using the CRAP test with my classes this semester, but it's been great so far. How to use a database. So, you know, first of all, we have subject guides and stuff for them, so they don't have to remember the names of the databases. But when they get into the databases, you know, just pointing out the obvious things, like using keywords to find things, clicking the option to make sure that they're peer-reviewed. What is a peer-reviewed item? Why is a peer-reviewed item even better? You know, that sort of ties it back into sort of the evaluation of the item. And a large part of course, their course is also how to create a citation. Whether it's MLA or APA, what goes into that. So this example that I have listed here, hopefully this will work. Let me put it into a tour. Can you guys see that Google Doc? Yes, okay. Okay, so you guys can feel free to scroll through this, but this is a Google Doc that I used with one of my freshman classes, a Gerontology 101 class. And it sort of covers like all those things that I mentioned, the basics of the stuff that they're covering. This also helps serve as an assessment tool so I can see whether or not they remember any of the things I just told them how to do in the class. So, you know, I make them tell me their topic. I make them sort of come up with keywords, synonyms, and I try to teach them how to use the Boolean phrasing, sort of the beginnings of it. Try to get them to sort of consider the difference between a book and an article. They also have to create at least create like the idea of a citation. So like, you know, what is the article, and sort of making them sort of have to go up and like find an article, and then I also always enjoy asking them which database they use, and how many of them actually put in EBSCO is always fun. to read because everybody thinks EBSCO is a database. I'm convinced that I just need to stop trying. At least I know they're in a database. But yeah, this is a sort of a fun way, and then as they're entering all this information, they see other people entering the information, so then there's sort of a little bit competition to see, you know, that everybody else is putting their information in there. So useful way to sort of see whether or not they're picking up those sort of basics of what you're showing them in class. Okay. With the upper level sort of graduate students, well, there is some assumption you can make that they do kind of already have some general familiarity, but I always do like to start off with a refresher because they don't always know everything. Some of them are graduate students coming back from a long stretch of not having been in school, right? So giving them sort of a refresher, but also the graduate and upper level students are always more willing to sort of get into this more in-depth discussion of like what is plagiarism and why is it bad, and intellectual property versus open access, and you know, they're more willing to talk to you and sort of philosophize about things, which is always a lot of fun and makes the class a lot of fun. These slides that I have listed here, that was a link. This is a class I taught this last week. These are just the slides that I use, and I sort of started the class off. You guys can, I think you guys should be able to scroll through the slides. It was a class that was a good mix of graduate students and like seniors, and the professor wanted me to talk about plagiarism, so I made it more of a discussion, and I gave them a couple really interesting articles to read and hopefully think about, and then come back and talk about, and it got really interesting, you know, because you do get, this professor actually got really mad because one of the students was like, well, I think all information should be free, and he had just finished making a point about how he had like written a grant and it had been stolen. So anyway, it was interesting, and then also at the end of it, they were researching its like protocols and methods. So I sort of went through briefly, you know, here are places for you guys to go and actually find information on your protocol or method. A little bit more in depth and a little bit more detail oriented, I guess, with the upperclassmen. Subject-specific databases, so not just academics or Premier. I am telling them to go to like ScienceDirect or PubMed or whatever database is more specific to their subject need. The other thing that I'm trying to integrate into like any library instruction session is like fun stuff. So utilizing like universal design, making sure that the visual learners are getting something, and the people who are just going to sit there and listen to me and not actually say anything, that they're actually learning something too, and splitting them off into small groups, and just trying to make the classroom a little bit more dynamic. And to make it more dynamic, utilizing a lot of emerging technologies. So these are just some things that I use. Like you guys saw the Google Docs. This is a Poll Everywhere poll that I use. Let me see. Put it up here. So I'll ask the class a question, and then they'll come in and put in an answer, and these are actual answers I got from one of the classes. So I asked them, you know, like, why is it a good idea to start searching on Google? Is it good or bad? And then they have to come back and sort of tell me, you know, oh, it's good because there's faster, they usually say, don't have to wait for something. Sometimes they put in silly things like get a paper cut from a book. But for the most part, they kind of get it, right? They're like, well, you can get it faster, but you don't know if it's good or not. You know, so just sort of starting that conversation that way through Poll Everywhere is kind of a fun way for them to sort of see it all pop up there on the screen too, and maybe some of them are less comfortable talking, but happy to type there. Yeah, this is free. I'm pretty sure. I haven't had a limit yet. I've made a couple. Made quite a few. They can text. You can see at the top that they can text in their answer, but I don't typically do that. I usually give them a link, and then they can just type it in on their computer, because I'm usually in a lab with them where they have computer access. So useful and also kind of cool because I can go back later and look at them and sort of maybe get an idea, well, maybe I want to adjust this question a little more, or maybe I want to talk about this a little bit more before I bring this poll up, whatever it is. Mind42 is another thing. That's a mind mapping tool. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. Let me see. So this is a really great tool sort of to get the students to maybe start thinking about keywords, right? So they can come up with multiple keywords that mean one thing, and here's all the other things that mean the same thing, and or however they want to use it, right? That they could go in and maybe make an outline for their paper, because you got some students that really need that visual tool. Yeah, my note's similar. Yeah, so this is a sort of a fun tool for them to use. TED videos, I always like putting in a couple videos and sort of that usually sparks a little bit of discussion. This is one that I use that you guys, I'm sure you guys have seen. Most librarians at this point that I've talked to have seen this one, which is, you know, I use this. Beware online filter bubbles, and he sort of talks about how you go and search for something and it's tailored for you now. You know, Google knows who you are, you're logged in, it knows that you usually click on these things, so it doesn't bother sending you a link to this other website because you're probably not interested in it, you know. And that sort of gets the students sort of starting to think, you know, like, oh, well, I guess I need to be more aware where my information is coming from. So this is, you know, another interesting way to get them to sort of start thinking about and analyzing what they're looking at. So I like putting in a couple videos wherever. Here's the guy who talks. So I'm always happy to waste, you know, an hour of my day watching TED videos to try to figure out which one I want to use next. Okay. I also have had classes that, you know, we have Blackboard here, so they can make wikis in their Blackboard space and sort of put stuff in there and work collaboratively. Oh my gosh, I can't speak. In that space and sort of learn. Wikis are great because then they sort of can peer review each other and comment. Last semester I also had a class that did a whole bunch of creative projects. They had video mashups. They made Blocksters, because the professor really wanted them, you know, sometimes it's not just about writing a paper. That is a very valuable tool, but also, you know, thinking of a creative way to put together that information. So, you know, it makes them actually excited to go out and do the research if they know that they're going to, at the end of it, put it all together into a video, right? Okay. Okay, so I am a promotion and tenure track position here, so I am needing to do academic things, not just instruct the students. The nice thing about the promotion and tenure track here at Towson is it is different for the librarians than it is for the faculty. Like, we have our own separate promotion and tenure track. It's not like we're considered the same as the faculty. So it gives us a little bit more flexibility in like what applies to what. So like, I'm pretty sure the faculty are told they need to publish a certain amount in a certain amount of time and stuff like that, and you know, they could take sabbatical and do that over a semester if they want to, but we can't do that. So there is sort of this general need for us to be publishing, but it doesn't have to all be, you know, peer-reviewed research that, you know, I took time off to like make sure that I did. Although we can do that, we do have that flexibility if we wanted to put in the time to really do that. But one of my papers actually that I did my last semester before I got this job I ended up getting published. So stuff that you guys are writing, you should consider submitting it. Try thinking about where you want to put those papers. They could go to good use. I published a paper in ISTL. Let's see what that is. And this is a paper that I wrote for a class, and I edited it a little bit before I sent it to them, but for the most part it's pretty much exactly the same. I can't believe it got published, but yay! So that was really cool. So I think, and I have a couple friends that said that there are like library science like student publications too that you guys should consider too, if you don't think that you want to try it for a larger like library journal. There are student publications also. I think New Members Roundtable has like a couple things too that you can like sort of baby step into publishing by sending them stuff too. So your projects and papers can be useful. It's always reassuring, right? Also, presentation-wise, it's always easy to forget that there's always local stuff going on. So while I was there at GSLIS, there was like a couple like technology forums, as I recall, and other things that I presented a couple stuff about like ITD there. There's statewide, groups that have get-togethers. So one here in Maryland is a SMILEX. It's Maryland Information Literacy Exchange is what it stands for. And I presented about a couple of the emerging technologies that I was using in my classroom there. And it was a great chance to go out and network with the people within Maryland, go out and present with some training wheels on, right? Because it's usually a smaller group, and it's really nice. A lot of gray literature for researchers in science. Yeah, there's been a lot of when I was searching too. I feel like when I was writing that paper, it was like a lot of people just sort of saying scientists should be using emerging technologies, and here's why. And there wasn't a lot of like formal stuff. So it was a lot of just like, here's how it's useful. So I think that there needs to be some actual studies done. We'll see if that ever actually happens. Some other things I'm doing academia-wise. I did get accepted this year for the ALA Emerging Leaders Program, which is a really great program. I have been enjoying it so far. It sends you to midwinter and to annual, and you get sort of placed with a group, and you're given a project to do, and then you present it at annual. So we got together at midwinter, they gave us a project, and now we're working on it, and we're going to present a poster on it at annual. So far I'm enjoying it, but I get mixed reviews from other people when I talk there. It's always mixed reviews whenever you get placed with random people for group work, right? But so far so good. It's a great program. The nice thing is, because I got accepted to the program, my school's sending me to annual and to midwinter. They're paying for it, so that's really nice. The project that I'm working on has me making a survey, and then I'm sending the survey out to students that are in management and leadership classes in LAS schools, and sort of assessing management and leadership classes and what the students want out of like LLAMA, which is the leadership group for ALA, or division, I should say. LLAMA is a division. I can never keep it all straight. So that's another sort of academia thing I'm doing. I'm also presenting at the Joint Conference of Librarians of Color, or otherwise known as JCLC. There I'm actually talking about that roving reference program that I mentioned earlier. So, just finding a lot, it's not just about, this is like a whole bunch of examples of stuff that's going on at ALA and also outside of ALA. The other thing is like ACRL. I went to ACRL in Philly last year, and that was great. I'm also going at the end of the month to this thing that's here in Baltimore called GSLIS, which is a really great program that somehow is free. I assume they must be getting a lot of money from the Institute of Museum and Library Services. Also, cool thing about GSLIS coming up is that LeVar Burton is the keynote, which I did not realize until after I had registered and then went and looked at the program, so I was quite excited about that. Who doesn't love reading Rainbow, right? Every librarian loves reading Rainbow. So I'm looking forward to that. So lots of different things going on academia-wise to sort of keep up with and put on my CV that looks good on my promotion and tenure track, hopefully. So hopefully, you know, getting in some book chapters and a couple more publications eventually. So another part of my position is sitting at the reference desk, where I get asked many in-depth questions like, where's the bathroom, and how do I print something, or do you guys have catching fire? So sitting at the reference desk, I do get a couple in-depth questions too, but it helps that there's always a librarian out there, because you know, we can look up how to find the book, but frequently we're trying to engage the students to make sure that they know how to find the book later on, and that they remember how to, you know, go in and find those articles that we showed them how to find later on. So sort of really, really quick one-shots when we're sitting at the reference desk and they're coming up and asking us something right away. We do also get so many citation questions. We don't try to advertise that the students are allowed to come up and ask us about citation questions, because by no means are we experts, and half the time we have to just tell them to ask their professor, because it's a question that, you know, well, it doesn't matter, and you need to ask your professor if they want it in this format or whatever. But we do have all the manuals there at the desk, and we try to know all the rules, but it's impossible to keep up. More in-depth questions that I do get asked, I get emailed questions a lot, or they'll email me and come in and have an appointment, and I try to put together resource lists like I showed earlier through RefWorks. I'll also email them a lot of like book suggestions, because sometimes I get students asking me, I can't find a book on compost, you know, and I try to make it as thorough as possible when I am interacting with them. So this is just an example that I had recently for a student looking for HFF and HT1080 cells, which, you know, I see that and I'm like, I have no idea what that is. Wikipedia. Apparently it's human foreskin fibroblasts and this other kind of cell. They're cells that are used for studying cancer, basically. So telling the student, you know, like, well, you can search the database for HFF, but sometimes it helps if you know, spell it all out. Or, you know, is it HT dash, or is there no dash, or did you try it as two separate words? So breaking it down that way. And also, you know, me just learning stuff in the process. It's always fun when I get asked questions like this and I have no idea what it is. Then I have to go and sort of do a little bit of research first to sort of figure out what it is. And then frequently, you know, this is all she sent me, right, was this one line. And I frequently have to email back and say, well, can you tell me a little bit more? I'm finding a lot of stuff on this topic. Is there anything to help you narrow it down? Because frequently they will just send me one line and it's like some huge possibility, and I have to sort of get them to come in and say, oh, well, actually, I wanted it used in this kind of experiment, or whatever it is that they're looking for. This is another one that I got recently. Somebody looking to determine the elemental composition of vanilla using XRF. That's another acronym that I don't know. And using discriminant analysis to determine origin. So they're getting vanilla, and then they want to figure out where it grew by analyzing it chemically. Basically, is what this is. I'm not a chemist. But I can go into the database and sort of search around and see what I can find. This one I have in here specifically because after she sent me this, she then listed this list of articles that somebody else had given her. that she was looking for, and she couldn't find any of them. And all she had were the titles of the articles and the year on some of them. So, so that was fun. So then I'm going into the database and trying to see, well, is this an actual title, or is this just, you know, someone's remembering vaguely what the title was? And, you know, do we even have that journal? So kind of going in and starting from scratch with a large list and trying to figure out whether or not we have access to any of those, and then putting them together in a rough works and then emailing back and, you know, trying to figure out, are these what you're actually looking for? Can you go back and ask your friends for the actual journal titles? That would help immensely in helping you find these articles. So this is the one that I mentioned earlier, and I thought this one was kind of funny just because this is the head of the molecular biology department, and he asked his assistant to ask me, I guess, to get these review articles on cell membrane biology. And cell membrane biology is kind of, I mean, which cell membrane? There's like a bajillion like levels of cell membrane. Do you want, you know, the whole cell, or are you talking about, you know, membranes of like ribonelles or whatever other things are going on inside the cell? So I found a large number of review articles about various levels of cell membrane biology and sent them along. Hopefully. I haven't heard back yet, but we'll see. And then sometimes I get students and they're in databases looking for something and they're like, it's too complicated. I don't understand any of these articles, and all I want to know is background information. So, you know, for this one, this is like a bacteria that gets used frequently in molecular biology to study things, and, you know, sort of saying, well, did you check this microbiology encyclopedia that we have? It might have an entry about your bacteria, rather than going into the databases. And also, I mean, actually convincing them, because sometimes they go in and they're just skimming through those lists in the databases and telling them, you know, did you go in and actually read the abstract? Or did you skim through the introduction? Because, you know, I know you don't need all that information that's in the article about the experiment, but maybe the introduction is going to have enough information for you. Or maybe the introduction is going to cite a place that you can then follow through and find more information from, you know. So helping them learn how to read a research article is part of the job, and also helping them realize that maybe an article isn't the best place to find background information. Maybe they should be going to like an encyclopedia or a more general book, or ebook for that matter. So just kind of a widespread of the types of questions that I'll get. I had a lot of molecular biology ones. I do get some forensic chemistry ones too, which has been interesting because apparently that's a fairly new program, so they're still sort of figuring stuff out, and there aren't, I mean, it's mostly chemistry databases that they're working through. So it's a lot of fun. This is the part of my job that I really like, because it does ask me something that I have to then go in and like learn something new. Committee work is the last part. I haven't been paying attention. No, I'm over my time. Sorry. So committee work, I do stuff with the library marketing committee. I did this display, as I mentioned, on paleobiology, and later on I'm going to put in some actual rocks that I borrowed from the geology department. I'm on the third and fourth floor display. There's display boxes on both of those floors that I work on. And then I'm also on this video committee. We're trying to make videos to like market the library, and I won't share this one with you guys, but this is like a civility video that we made telling the students to be nice to each other. I don't remember, it was for some different goal, but it was just sort of a golden rule-ish kind of library video. And right now we're in the process of possibly buying a Muppet to star in our next few series of videos, so we'll see. I was also on the Asian Pacific American Library Association Literary Awards Committee. Yes, I'm a science librarian and they put me on this Literary Awards Committee, and I'm not in any way super qualified to be judging young adult novels, but just volunteered and they put me on there. So it was a lot of fun. They sent me a lot of free books. I got to read a lot of good books and some bad books, and it was really great. I really loved it. This was this year's winner. Yeah, they just like threw me in there. I'm also a new members roundtable and the ACRL Science and Technology section. I'm on committees on both of those, in both of those groups. I was also on a search committee for my school. We hired a new education librarian. She's starting in March, and that whole process was, I wish I could like bring more students, or I could have somehow watched that process when I was in graduate school, because being on the search committee really made me feel like I understood what any interviewer should know coming in. So it was really great being on a search committee. So if you guys ever get the chance to watch the process or be on a search committee, I highly recommend it. Okay, so that about sums it up. Sorry, I kind of went over time. A couple other things I do: I tweet, I blog, I go to webinars, I attend conferences, I mentor, I do a bunch of stuff. So it's a lot of fun. I love my job. I couldn't ask for a better one. And if you guys ever need anything, if you want to talk about science, if you want to talk about your job search, if you want to talk about collaborating on a project, or whatever it is, I do welcome you guys to email me, contact me, whatever. I'm happy to discuss anything with you guys. So thanks so much. Oh, fire drill. Uh-oh. I can say some more about the search committee work. So I would say the biggest thing that I learned about being on the search committee was we read all of those resumes and cover letters, and we try to keep up with everything that's going on with the people that we're considering and bringing in or phone interviewing with. But we had a lot of people who were just too brief. We had a couple of people who talked too much and a couple of people who were just too brief. But I would rather they talked too much. That they tried to tell us, how what they did in their resume applies to the question that we're asking. Because we're not going to remember every little detail that's on the resume. You're welcome, guys. How often do I publish? I mean, my goal is generally one thing a year. So last year I did that article, and then this year I'm going to do a book chapter. But it really depends on your institution, I think. It really does. Did I see someone's hand go up? Did somebody actually want to say something? At Illinois, I'm sure you guys, they're required to do peer-reviewed stuff, right? I am not necessarily required to be publishing peer-reviewed things, just as long as I'm sort of going out there and sort of representing my university. So it really does depend. I haven't done a peer-reviewed thing yet. I'm going to get to it eventually, hopefully. Yeah, every journal does have different rules. I wrote it, then they put out a call. It was posted to a listserv. I'm on so many listservs, but they are helpful when I am looking for something. They posted a call in the listserv, and I went and checked it out, and they wanted, they wanted your citations in a certain style. I think, as I recall, I emailed the editor first with my idea and said, does this sound like something that you guys would be willing to put in? And then she said, yeah, send it my way. And then they looked over, it got a couple edits, they sent it back, said, is this okay? And I said, yep. And they put it in there. So that one, I mean, yeah, it was pretty easy. Yeah, I mean, with the book chapter that I'm doing this year, honestly, like, they put out a call, and I emailed her and said, hey, I'm doing a poster on this. Would you be interested in if I wrote a book chapter about this poster that I'm going to be doing, like expanding this into a book chapter? And she just wrote back and said, yes, send it to me in 2 months, and we'll look it over. So, I'm on a couple different listservs. I'm on the instruction section. I'm on the science technology section. The couple different ones. New members roundtable. I mean, usually stuff makes the rounds, and then you start getting multiple copies of stuff. But you can find out about a lot of that stuff just by making sure you're reading the listserv stuff that gets posted. And you start thinking about proposals for ACRL. That's been making the rounds recently in the listserv.
Okay, so I think, as you said, if people have more questions or want to correspond, then it's a way to continue the conversation. But I want to thank Lakshmi for a very informative overview of 1 year in the life of a science librarian. So, lots, again, the multifaceted roles. I think that's very helpful. So, all right.
All right.
So
Thanks so much, Linda.
I'll set the timer for 10 minutes, and then we'll resume and say good night. And thank you for coming. It's late. It's that much later on the East Coast, so I appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, thanks so much, guys. It was really great talking to everybody, and really, if you have any questions or you want to talk about anything, please feel free to email me.
Thanks so much.
Have a good night, guys.
Okay, so now we're going to switch gears and have an overview of the categories of publications that we're focused on in the readings. And so, again, starting next week, we'll be moving into subject-specific resources. And this week it's really rounding out exposure to finding tools and also just some more specifics about categories like patents and standards that are important in some of the disciplines that we'll be discussing in more detail. And often, I mean, as we go through the disciplines, we'll be looking at some of the major databases, and certainly the focus of many of those databases is the journal literature, to some extent the conference literature. But the readings and the orientation tonight is really trying to highlight what else is out there, and again, not in some cases specific to particular disciplines, but not necessarily indexed in one of the databases. If you do a Google, if these are, many of these are open access. If you do a Google Scholar search, you'll pull up some of these materials. But this is just sort of, again, filling out the landscape and highlighting finding tools in particular. So last week, Sarah Miller mentioned the notion of gray literature, and I said we would be covering a bit more this week. So there is a resource that a Gray Literature Network service. They sponsor a conference, they publish a journal, maintain a repository. So again, this is something you can explore to get more familiar with what this organization is doing. It's really an outreach, trying to promote awareness of and use of gray literature. In Europe, there is a system for information on gray literature in Europe to open access to 700,000 bibliographical references of gray literature produced in Europe, and how to locate documents. So they're defining, and again, you see both spellings. So you have examples of G-R-A-Y, literature, include technical or research reports, doctoral dissertations, some conference papers, some official publications, and other types of gray literature. And so this covers science, technology, biomedical sciences, but also into the economic, social sciences, and humanities. So that's one finding tool. Again, not specific to a particular subject, so you can't predict what the coverage might be, but then some specific categories of publications. So government publications, we have, again, a gateway, a portal, science.gov. And at this point, it has 16 U.S. government science organizations within 12 federal agencies. So this is a reminder of the subject scope, that there are agencies that have publications that relate, of course, not surprisingly, agriculture and food, astronomy and space, but also some other areas like science education or physics and chemistry. So you can explore science topics to get some idea of the agencies, just to be reminded that, okay, these are some departments come to mind immediately, like Department of Agriculture or Department of Energy or Department of Health and Human Services. But within the Department of Commerce, we mentioned last week, we talked about the National Institute of Standards and Technology, also the National Technical Information Services within Commerce. Department of the Interior includes the U.S. Geological Survey, EPA, Department of Transportation, NASA, NSF. So again, that's a reminder of the agencies, and then some of the databases that they make available, and that science.gov searches across. As we get into the specific subject areas, when we get to agriculture, we'll be talking about Agricola. And when we get to physics and astronomy, we'll talk more about NASA resources. And when we get to earth sciences, talk about NOAA. But this is just a preview of some of the major governmental sci-tech organizations and resources. And then expanding to the globe, this worldwide science.org. So this is a global science gateway. And science.gov would be the U.S. partner in this effort. But other alliance members, if you scan down the list, you can see sort of the equivalent national level institute or organization. So you have Asia, you have Europe, South America, and so multilingual, also not all English language organizations, African Journals Online. So again, openly searchable, openly available, and so some journal literature, but also some gray literature. So technical reports, I think I have mentioned NTIS, the National Technical Information Service, that is a clearinghouse for research reports. And again, not specific to SciTech, but because a lot of the research, you can see subject categories. They do have some social science topics, business topics, but aeronautics, agriculture, astronomy, and so forth. So this would be the research report literature. And there was discussion in the textbook about why someone might want to track down research reports as being certainly often the earliest reports of research, more complete reports than might appear in the journal literature. So I've just provided some other links. I won't click through to all of them, but this is an effort at the University of Maryland to provide a listing to synthesize a list of what it says here, organizations that provide full text reports or abstracts of their technical reports on the World Wide Web. So again, it's a reminder of the different types of organizations that may produce technical reports. So you have government agencies, but you also have universities, observatories, national laboratories, and so forth. And again, not just US based. So again, if you were trying to figure out, does a particular university have a technical report series, this would be a resource. I mean, imagine if we go down to the U's, there are lots of, we have the University of Illinois Computer Science Department, Mathematics Department, and National Center for Supercomputing Applications, Systems Software Research Group, Theoretical Biophysics Group, all have their own technical reports series and making them available on the web. So if you're trying to get a sense of what research strengths, research initiatives in a particular organization, if they have their own technical report series, that's a source of information. This is another gateway for e-prints, and then the major agencies that have technical reports programs. NASA has a lot of technical reports, and again, this would be a combination of their own research laboratories. NASA has a number of research centers, and then to the extent that they fund research at universities in the private sector that result in technical reports, they would also be included through this portal. And then Defense Technical Information Center was mentioned in the textbook, and they talked about sort of levels of classification. I think the first week we talked about the scientific publication cycle and what could be constraints on the flow of scientific information, and certainly with defense-related information, some of their report literature is not classified, is open to the world, so that's accessible through the public web. But then they would have the same agency, the Defense Technical Information Center, would maintain separate repositories with increasing levels of security in accessing literature that's reports of research that's classified. Department of Energy also has its own national labs and funded research in other organizations. And then this last one is an interesting project because it's a collaboration among a number of libraries that is saying, okay, we have, we're developing good access and availability of the technical report literature for the period of time in which online databases have existed. But there were a lot of technical reports published in paper form prior to 1975, in this case, is what they're taking as a cutoff. So they are, well, they've been seeking funding, they've gotten support to try to create, so it's saying identify, digitize, archive, and provide access to technical reports prior to 1975. So this is an ongoing project, and so they're targeting things like the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission, various laboratories and branches, U.S. National Bureau of Standards, that's the predecessor of the NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology, and then U.S. Bureau of Mines. So again, that's an effort to, well, preserve and enhance access to older technical report literature. Then dissertations, and again, this is an interesting example of a genre, a type of material that formerly was fairly restricted in distribution. But now, with the emphasis, you may have seen the acronym ETD, Electronic Theses and Dissertations. So that effort has led to much enhanced access because theses and dissertations are being deposited in electronic form and released for searching. So our own campus is actually relatively new to this effort. Our school, Library and Information Science, and the electrical and computer engineering departments were the pilot schools a couple of years ago. And then so we helped the graduate college work out the kinks in the deposit process and the steps, the stages. But now it's fully, they were pleasantly surprised at the rapidity with which students depositing either master's theses or dissertations chose the online option, and now it's the electronic thesis deposit option, and now it's the only option. So we are fully made that migration. And so again, if you're curious about what students are being told about how to guidelines for depositing their thesis, these are ours. But then where do they go? They go into ideals. And so it makes sense. We've talked a bit about institutional repositories as being the site for an institution's, the research output of an institution. And so theses and dissertations for a research university, theses and dissertations are going to be a significant part of that. So they've created, within ideals, they've created a sub-collection of dissertations and theses. So what's interesting is to look at the statistics, or at least interesting to me anyway. So this is for all the theses, not for any single thesis, but for all the theses that have been deposited so far. They've had more than 245,000 downloads. This month, and we're not that far into February, they've already had 9,356, and just today, 864 theses were downloaded. So yes, I think to me it's just very interesting reminder of the power of open access to, in this case, a form of the research literature. And theses are, again, they're meant to be original research. They're often, so it's the findings of the study itself, but also if you've ever written a thesis or a dissertation or looked at one, they're also typically have fairly thorough literature review section. So again, if someone's trying to learn about research in a particular area, get an overview of prior research, then that's another function of the a function a thesis can play. So you'll notice the little, but it's interesting also, the choices. So I said everybody has to deposit. You don't have a choice. If you want to earn a degree from the University of Illinois, a graduate degree that requires a thesis or a dissertation, you do have to deposit, but it's your intellectual property. And so you have a choice of, you're encouraged to make it open access. Don't put any locks and keys on it. But in setting up the system, one of the considerations was, how do we, there may be situations where a student author wants to secure access, or secure against access for a period of time. And so they can choose to make it private, closed access. But then they have to renew that every couple of years. It's not forever. And then limited, the slightly more generous access is saying, okay, I'll make it available, but only to individuals who are part of the University of Illinois community. So have a valid UIUC login. So yes, it's a form of embargo. And it could be for patent. If someone is working on research that's potentially patentable. It could be for, and more in the humanities side, someone might want to have their thesis be the basis for a book publication, and so they don't want to release the thesis if they're using it as a basis for some other form of dissemination. So in any case, I haven't seen, I'm sure they're keeping statistics on what proportion of deposited theses have these conditions, but certainly the default is open access. So for the author, the advantage is you maintain control of your intellectual property. And so you decide whether, in what form to, you may want to wait and publish a series of journal articles based on your thesis. I mentioned the humanities one, you may want to turn it into a book. So it's just you have discretion over whether anyone can have access to it now, or at the time you graduate, or whether you will refine, refine the prose, package it for some other publication medium. So the advantage is you then have control over your intellectual property. The disadvantage is that you lose out on this exposure of your work, that any form of open access distribution enables. So I think now, especially there's beginning, and I may have mentioned this in the past, there's a growing literature documenting the extent to which open access publications are, can attract, so not just downloads, but then subsequently being cited. So just building up your reputation by making your work readily available, and then so there's the risk. There's a concern that you don't have control over. Somebody has this substantial document that you've created, and you don't have control over its dissemination and redissemination. But that's I would say would be the downside. And no, you would never publish exactly the same text. It would be highly unusual to. Perhaps more. Well, even a journal article is just going to be derivative from the text. So no, you're always going to be. I think if you're publishing in any edited venue, it's going, at a minimum, it will go through some level of editorial review. Right. So the only disadvantage I would say is that the just concern that this may be research that you want to build on, and you'd rather conduct some additional experiments before you release these preliminary findings or whatever. So, so again, it would be interesting to interview, the individuals who've chosen to lock up their theses to get more insights into the rationale behind that. Standards. So I've given you, you'll still be credited with citations. I mean, the expectation is this is a form of publication. It's just, not in the form of, a refereed journal article or a published monograph, but the assumption is that there was, certainly one hopes, the dissertation defense process and review by a committee is a form of quality control that would be, one hopes, as rigorous as a peer review process. So standards, I've given you a definition here. There was, again, good discussion in the textbook about who develops the standards development process, who uses standards. Certainly, it's largely in the context of engineering. It was mentioned in the textbook. They gave the example of, in an academic context, students perhaps needing, working on design projects, having to reference standards. Certainly in a special library context, there would be use for standards. So I've given you links to some of the major organizations. So ANSI, American National Standards Institute, is the umbrella organization for standards development and distribution in the United States. One of the member organizations of ANSI is NISO. So NISO is our primary standardization organization, the National Information Standards Organization. And so the partners, I mean, it's a collaboration really of, if I go to members, see if it gives me a list. So you can see who is involved in our standards process, the National Information Standards Organization. So you can see library organizations, various information organizations, science organizations, and publishers, Emerald Publishing Group, database producers like EBSCO, library automation firms. So not all concerned with all standards, but that's, again, a reminder that you have different stakeholders concerned with standards. And this standards organization provides, or NISO provides, a venue for organizing committees that draft standards, and then those draft standards need to be voted on by the member organizations. I mean, it says companies, but I mean, in our industry, in our field, it's also professional associations. Not, I mean, some of those are companies. And just, the Library of Congress is also a player in standards development. Certainly, MARC, machine readable cataloging, is an example of a standard. Standards for markup and metadata standards are all examples of information standards. And then at the international level, there's, so ANSI, our American National Standards Institute, would collaborate with comparable bodies from other countries to develop standards. If you're trying to ensure some uniformity at the international level, then you would want to have an ISO standard that may be based on one or more national standards, but again has standing is used at the international level. Again, you had a fairly detailed chapter on patents, and so in principle, something is eligible to be patented if it's useful, novel, non-obvious. So I've given you some links for general information concerning patents. The process in the United States is administered by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. So there was a discussion in the textbook about the patenting process. There actually are not, not many libraries house full collections of patents. This is the Patent and Trademark Resource Centers. So like in Illinois, the only collection is at the Chicago Public Library. So other libraries like our engineering library would have reference tools like the manual of patent classification and so forth, but the actual physical patents are only in Illinois are only available at Chicago Public Library. Then there's an association of patent and trademark depository libraries. They maintain a handout collection for training on patent searching. European Patent Office. I did want to go to the Google patent site just so you can see an example of a patent document. So if we're interested in exercise, we have a treadmill, and so the components of a patent, and this again was discussed in the textbook chapter. You have an abstract, you have a drawing, description, and then claims. So if we look at the abstract first, just to see when. So this was a design patent. That was one of the categories that was discussed. August 6, 1985. So that's when it was awarded. And it was filed. The filing date was 1983, issue date 1985. So that, again, that was explained in the text that there may be some period of months between when the inventor seeks patent protection and when a decision is actually rendered by the patent office. So this, the claim, the ornamental design for a treadmill substantially as shown and described. So that's what they're seeking protection for, is the design of this particular treadmill. And that's what they're claiming is distinguished. So every time you log into Google Patents, you see a different array of documents, and so again, it's a reminder of all of the kinds of inventions that brine shrimp hatchery, pacifier, monkey doll, wall-mounted headboard for a bed, and candy forming machine. So you can search over 8 million patents. So as far as searching patents, again, there was some discussion of the steps in the textbook, but there is a patent searching tutorial that you can work through. Again, as the textbook cautioned, again, there are specialists who do, patent lawyers. There are specialists who do patent searching. In a special library context, you may have a unit that is involved in patent searching. And in a public library, I said Chicago Public Library, they need to be able to assist inventors who want to research prior art. But it's not, so it's a specialized form of searching, and what, a more general science reference library, and understanding, what collections are available in electronic form. Is there a patent depository collection in your state? Where is that located? and then just the basic way that patents are indexed and are classified, and how you can use the classification schedule to get oriented to categories of inventions. I do like to reference this notion of useful, novel, and non-obvious, and then look at some of the examples. I mean, again, some will randomly come up when you do Google patent searches, but this is a website where they've gathered their gallery of obscure patents, so things, again, that you might not think about, and it shows how creative inventors have been. So we have an eating utensil, resembles chopsticks, but which do not require the skilled manipulation, and so forth. So so they go through, and again, as the textbook suggested, it's an expensive process to put together the documentation file for a patent, but and as it explained, the notion of patent is you're granted the ability to exclude others from making, taking advantage of this intellectual property that you have, for which you're seeking protection for the period of the patent, and then it becomes open to anyone. So the idea is having a period long enough that if an inventor is able to, often an inventor will assign the patent rights to a company, an organization, and if it's an invention, something that can be manufactured, then hopefully that period of the patent is enough that they can benefit from their invention, but then that content, that knowledge, is available to the world through the patent document. Yes, the self-kicking machine was an unusual example to have chosen in the textbook. All right, so I just wanted to, again, provide a bit of orientation and to resources that can offer more specifics beyond what the textbooks and other readings provided on these categories. And again, they're not things, we don't have assignments. I haven't constructed assignments around these categories, but if we're going to have a full appreciation for the scope of scientific and technical literature, then be aware what is the nature of a patent, the substance of a patent, of a standard, this more amorphous concept of gray literature is what really the focus for this week, so more general orientation. Okay, so any questions before we wrap up for tonight? So as I commented, we've reached a juncture where we've spent the first few weeks covering science and technology broadly defined, the scientific publication cycle, the different categories of material that encompasses. And now, so starting next week, we're going to switch and focus more specifically on, again, still at a fairly rapid clip. Next week is all of mathematics and computer science. And so it's at that point that you can begin to look at assignment. I'll talk next week about the literature search assignment, because once we've covered mathematics and computer science, if you wanted to have that as, have a topic that falls within mathematics and computer science as your literature search focus, then you'd be working on a literature search to be submitted the next week. So I will talk next week about the literature search assignment, since that's focused on the very, a topic, your choice of a topic within a broad subject area. Again, you have several different weeks. We have math and computer science, astronomy and physics, and so forth. So you certainly are not required to do a literature search as early as math and computer science, but that will be the first category. And yes, I've lined up a guest speaker whose title is Computing and Information Sciences Librarian. So again, my goal with the guest speakers for the next few weeks is individuals who are working in a more focused area, with specialists in whatever subject area is the focus for that week. So, and assignment 2 is due next week. That's right. So February 20th, assignment 2 is evaluating indexing and abstracting services. So it was interesting that Lakshmi talked about, well, Web of Science versus Scopus. You're looking at Web of Science and Scopus for that assignment. So you have some real world implications as you think about its features and relative strengths and weaknesses. All right, so that's, again, if you have questions over the next week as you're working on that assignment, just get in touch. But otherwise, I will say good night.